I had a game of cricket with the monks at the foot of the Himalayas, which is something I never thought I'd ever do, and it was pretty incredible. And they were really talented bunch of cricket players actually, and they were pretty brave too, because you'll see there that you can probably tell a little bit that actual paddock is pretty rough. It's literally is a cow paddock where the cattle graze, and they put their stumps in, and I thought, let's have a game of cricket. But I thought they were going to use soft balls or tennis balls, but no, out come the rock hard brand new cricket balls, and they were absolutely steaming because they were trying to impress me, you know, like I was watching, I was getting hit in the legs, and one guy hitting the cheekbone. I thought he broke his cheekbone, but he didn't even flinch. And then they said to me, do you want a bat? I said, bloody hell, like, not really, but I somehow got in and had a few shots.
Australia loves all of our heroes, but we love nothing more than a triple threat. And there is one man, one Australian, who is known for his love of cricket, for his success in so many different fields, and for the great work he's done in the arts and specifically with the camera. And that man is Hugh Jackman. But he's not here this evening. So instead, I'd like to bring to the stage someone who is, look, he's an Australian cricket legend, was the captain of the Australian cricket team, was the Australian of the Year, but possibly most importantly, he is the man who has recognised that after Sydney, anywhere in Australia, the cultural capital is Kempsey. This exhibition has been nowhere but Sydney, and he's someone who finally gets it. Melbourne, third place. Thank you very much. Please welcome Australian cricket legend, a man who just understands art, Steve Waugh.
Many years ago, I first toured India in 1986, and I was just fascinated by the country. It was so different to Australia, and it was like landing on another planet. And I'm very curious and inquisitive by nature, so I'd always sit up the front of the bus and look out the window and just see what was going on. And India just was so fascinating. There were kids playing cricket everywhere, in the alleyways, on the beaches, in the parklands, in the slums, wherever there was kids, there was a game of cricket. I thought one day I want to come back and I want to capture that through my camera lens, because when you're playing cricket for Australia, you can't go out in the general public and do things because you'd be swamped. There'd be 1,000 people in 30 seconds on top of you, so I could never do that. So the opportunity came 15 years after I retired, or 20 years after I retired, and that was 2020. I went to India for 18 days and captured 18,000 photos.
Photography feels like a solo art, but you really put together almost a team to do this tour.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in India. 18 days in India is not easy, travelling around, and we had 9 different cities, so lots of plane flights. We were filming, taking photos from 6 in the morning till really 6 or 7 at night, so it was a hectic schedule, and everyone played their role. I mean, we had, Harley, who's here tonight, was basically the tour manager. We had a fixer in India, a local, who could sort of organise some different places to get photos because you've got to get permits and pay certain money. Trent Park was my photography coach. We had Andre Major, who did the videography, so he did all the documentary stuff. And we had Jason Brooks, Simone Brooks here, who was basically sort of the glue that held it all together. If there's any issues, he'd sort of smooth those over. So it was a really good unit, and it allowed me the freedom to do the photography. And also I had a local guy who was security. That was really important as well, because obviously Indians still know me. There's 1.4 billion Indians who recognise me and want to have a photo and a selfie and come up and say hello. So every time I went to get a photo, for instance, in the Himalayas there'd be lots of people, so they'd have to sort of just tell the locals, just in the local dialect, just hang back, let him do his photos, and then he can have a game of cricket after. So he was really important to the whole situation as well. Otherwise, it could have easily turned into chaos.
It's really interesting you talk about meeting people. Photographers are supposedly people who are putting a camera between themselves and people. Like, it's often the cliche is that it's a way of removing yourself, and yet so obviously that's not how you approach this.
You've got to have a connection with the subject you're talking to or taking the photo of, and I think it makes a difference to sort of break the bread sometimes and talk to the people and let them know what you're doing rather than shoving a camera in their face and getting the photo. An example might be the girl over there on that far wall, the portrait. That was in a marketplace in Jodhpur, and I think when you're a foreigner and you've got a camera and you're taking photos, a lot of people are a bit wary and they're not sure what you're doing. So for me, it was about talking to that lady. I think I bought some of her bracelets she was selling and had a bit of a chat to her family, and I said, do you mind if I take a few shots? And initially she said no, but eventually I sort of wore her down and she let me take a couple of shots. So you've got to really talk to the people and get to know them. And for me, it was about saying, look, this is a book I want to celebrate why Indians love cricket, why is it a religion to you guys, and I want to showcase this to the rest of the world. And once they knew that, they were straight away on board with it.
There's a sort of passion that goes into putting this tour together. You sort of described it. It sounds really intense. Is that something where your past life as people may not know Steve played cricket, but your past life in cricket, does that influence the way that you approach a project like this?
Yeah, definitely. It gave me confidence to know that if I was passionate and I put the hard work and time and effort, that I could be successful. But I knew if I took any shortcuts, it wasn't going to happen, because it was a tough trip. I mean, it was a tight schedule. Rushing from one place to the next, and then a lot of times we're driving in the minibus down the motorway and we see a game of cricket on the side of the road. We parked ourselves there for about half an hour and we're on the way to the airport. So again, we're on a time schedule, so had to get the shots in, say hello to the locals and dash off. So some of the shots were sort of set up before we went to India, but most of them sort of happened as we were there. And that's the way I wanted to do it. I wanted to sort of be natural about it and just capture the authenticity of people just playing cricket as they would do any day of the year. And in India, it's every day of the year they're playing cricket somewhere, and it's they're just so passionate about the game that there's always a game going on somewhere. But again, once they knew what I was doing, they were really happy that I was there. A foreigner celebrating cricket in India. No Indian cricketer has done that, taken photos and done the Spirit of Cricket India. So for them, they're saying, an Australian captain coming over here and doing a photography book about India, straight away they thought it was fantastic, and they were on board. So that wasn't an issue.
You've never been someone who's shied away from a big challenge, but surely there's got to be an easier version of you start with Australia, or maybe go really far to New Zealand or something. But this is a big step to take India as the way to learn photography.
Yeah, well, I knew there was going to be plenty of opportunities to take plenty of shots. I mean, there's no shortage of subjects over there and content and connections, and I just knew it would be so colourful and exciting and different. And so I figured, it was probably an easier place for me to learn than I'm doing one around Australia now, which is a lot harder, because in Australia the cricket season is generally in summer, and it's such a big country that it's going to take me probably 3 or 4 years to do all the photos. Whereas India, I did this in 18 days, because wherever you went there was action, and so I took 20,000 photos in 18 days. So in a lot of ways it was natural. In my back of my mind, the project was do India first. It really is almost a home of cricket. It is a religion. It's something that everybody is so passionate about, and I knew there would be plenty of subject matter, and I could make a few mistakes. As I say, I took 18,000 shots. 17,000 of those were probably straight in the bin. There's probably 1,000 good ones, of which I got down to 220 for the book.
What was that process? I mean, it's everyone who's done. We've got a video going here, and everyone knows that the first mistake is taking too many shots, because you're making work for yourself once you hit the edit room. Yeah, and Trent, who was my mentor and the coach, basically said, don't throw any of your photos out, just keep them all and look at them all. And look, it took me 2 or 3 days of 10 hours a day looking through the original lot, and then sort of getting rid of a few, and then going back to it. It was so hard to get it down. It was like, I don't want to get rid of that one, or I want to put that one in the book. And even at the end, there were shots that I maybe put in the book I shouldn't have, and shots I left out. And shots, actually, they tend to grow on you afterwards. And it's amazing how many times I was in India taking probably 50, 100, 200 shots of a certain scene. Then I just pan the camera around and take one shot of something, and then I look back later on, and that one shot was the shot of the day. So it taught me a lot of lessons that don't focus too much on one scene, and just have a look around you and check out what's going on, and always have your antenna up to something else that might happen. Turning to some of the individual shots, I mean, it's turning to the shots behind us here. Yeah, look, it's amazing ground. It's Dharamshala, and they now play test matches in one day, so it's up north of India. It's sort of close to the border of Pakistan. The mountains, the Dalai Lama lives not far from here. And this is the first girls' cricket academy in India, so I wanted to capture that. It was pretty unique, and I mean, women's sports taking off enormously now, but 3 or 4 years ago, that really was groundbreaking, that academy. And these were 2 girls' teams playing against each other, and after the game, they got together and had the celebration at the end of the match. So to me, that's the spirit of cricket. The bat and ball factory, so this was a place outside of Delhi, and again, it was just fascinating to see how things are made. The bottom levels, all the bats were being made down here, and these guys were stitching up balls, and they're getting lacquered and dried. But this shot here was one of the older guys, about 80-year-old, and I wanted to capture his hands just to show what he was doing. So his job is to hand stitch a cricket ball. So he does about 10 balls a day, but that's his job, is just to stitch a cricket ball.
which is pretty intense work, and he'd obviously been doing it for 20 or 30 years, but he had a lot of pride in his work.
This is Spirit of Cricket Australia.
Yeah, that's starting now, so yeah, a couple of shots. Yeah, the one down the bottom's pretty crazy. These guys are in Conwell Park in Sydney. Their pitch is made of the same soil as the SCG, so it's bulleye soil. So they researched that. They got the SCG curator to put that in. He rolled it. There are cameras here, so they live stream games all around the world. In India, got sponsors, they got lights, they got a roller, they got covers, they got everything, these guys, and they play these T20 matches, 50 overs and test matches, and they play against people come from all around the world to play them. And this is in Conwell Park in Sydney, and it's not even their house, they rent the place. True story. And you can see here, you got the Hills hoist, you know, in the backyard, you got a few balls. Next door's got the Hills hoist, and if you look close, there's about 5 or 6 balls next door. And you can see here, like one of the old rules you would have all played, off the roof, you can catch it one-handed, it's out, and he caught that one-handed, came off the roof and he caught it. So these guys are nuts. Obviously Shane Warne, it was, you know, a shock to everyone, and this was a young cricketer who played first grade for Western Suburbs in Sydney, who does mural and art, and he did this in Paddington, and I just captured him, you know, doing that art for the day, and there's a guy walking the 2 sausage dogs as he went past. Bob Simpson, who was my coach and I guess mentor, and I really wanted to get this shot because Bob has got dementia now, and you know, it was difficult to get the shot, and I was with him for a couple of hours trying to get the right shot, and he wasn't really focusing in on it. He was struggling to I was struggling to get the right shot. I thought, how can I get him to get into the mode of, you know, wearing the baggy green cap? So I just said to him, imagine you're going out to bat with Bill Laurie in a test match and give me that look. And that was the look he gave me for just a couple of shots, and I think it captured him perfectly with his baggy green cap on. Well, it was in Mumbai, and this guy's played Ranji Trophy, and he'd written 7 books on cricket. He was celebrating his 100th birthday. It's the oldest first-class cricketer in India. And Sachin lived in Mumbai, so I said, do you mind coming along and sort of do me a favour and meeting this guy who's 100 years of age? And he surprised him, and he thought it was the best thing ever, and celebrated his 100th birthday, cut the cake, and we got the photo. And then I thought, look, I'd love to take a portrait of Sachin while I'm there. And the good thing about that, it's not a picture of Sachin Tendulkar, it's a picture of Sachin. It's actually him, and shoes off and relaxed, and that's one of my favourite shots because you know, he was pretty cool about it. It was weird me being on the other side of the lens asking him for a photo. Well,
it's funny, as I was chatting to Harley about this before, I think we all assume that, you know, this is the man who ruined your final test. Like, you're meant to, I think in a lot of our minds, he's the enemy. But clearly, I mean, you've got more in common with him than, I'm going to say quietly, I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, probably than a lot of people in this room. So I find it fascinating that you end up finding a bond with Sachin.
Yeah, you do afterwards. When you're playing, he's got that respect and that. I didn't know much about him, he didn't know much about me, and that's the way we liked it. You know, we're playing for our country, a lot at stake. Not like today where they all play IPL and know each other as best mates. We had that distance between us, but now, once we're finished, I get on really well with him. He's a good bloke. He's very humble, relaxed, and very down to earth. Yeah, this is Jodhpur, which is one of the, you know, pretty famous, and that's Jodhpur Fort, which is built in the 1450s, I think. And you just see how densely populated it is, and yeah, I like this shot. There's a lot of you know, people watching from the sidelines, and you can see the action of the cricket. They take it really seriously, and the fields are all spread out all over the place. And they play it as if it's their imaginary test match, which it is to them. It's really important. So I think this shot, I had to go. Like, there's a lot of these houses along this street, so I actually knocked on someone's door and said, can I go to your roof? And whenever you did, they always said, no problem, go inside, you know, offer you a cup of tea, and you stand on the roof and for about 20 minutes and take all these shots. So that's what Indians are like. They're very accommodating and very friendly, and they were happy to let me take the shots. It sort of all came together, this one. This was in Ossian Desert in Rajasthan. And it was really cold. It was about 7:30 in the morning. It was really cold. Went out to the desert to photograph these kids, and I wanted a shot in where they were playing on the sand, which was pretty unique. And it sort of all came together perfectly. And that shot won the Wisden International Cricket Photo of the Year, which is something I never thought I'd win. And that's a global sort of photography award. Yeah. So I was up against professional photographers, so I somehow jagged that. It was, I guess, like a night watchman scoring 100. Sometimes you get lucky, but yeah, it's one of my favourite shots.
And I feel like the next photo is a good demonstration of you've got to know the rules to break the rules.
This was on the way to the Taj early one morning, and I in a place called Gurgaon, which is a new city. I was always on the lookout to try and get a cow in a shot because the cows are sacred in India. And I just saw this cow like out in the cricket field, and so he pulled over in the car really quickly, got out, got my cameras ready, and by the time I got all my stuff ready, the cow sort of wandered out of the shot. The good thing was we were on a 4.5 hour trip to the Taj, and the hotel had packed all these pastries and cakes in the car. So I thought maybe I don't know if the cow likes a little cake or a pastry, and got the security guard, which I talked about, said, mate, can you just entice that cow back out in the field? So we took a couple of the pastries and gave them to the cow. So sometimes you've got to cheat a little bit to get the shot. And he was out here sort of feeding the cow, and then he let it go, and of course I got the shot. So I'd say it was totally natural, but we had to coax the cow to get in the shot.
This is a country that takes beach cricket more seriously than we do, as the scorecard up there demonstrates. But talk us through these beach shots.
People might overlook that, but that was on the sand, and that's how they keep score. So there's a little stick there, and that's pretty serious stuff, you know. And that's sort of where they were playing on the beach there. And that was from a hotel looking down Juhu Beach. And there was any number of games being played there in the afternoon. Once people finish work, they go down the beach and it's on. And this is the same spot here. And again, one of those shots where I didn't know what I was doing. I said, Trent, how do I get this to look like a silhouette? And he sort of suggested some different shutter speeds and aperture on the camera, and it worked out pretty perfectly, and I managed to somehow snare the ball in the shot as well.
Your passion for India goes beyond photography and cricket. The work your foundation did for India is absolutely legendary.
Yeah, no, I was lucky enough to meet Mother Teresa, which was pretty incredible and life-changing, and from there I supported a charity in India, which I'm still doing today. It's called Udayan, which is a rehabilitation centre for kids who are born into leprosy colonies. So that was something I got involved in and realised I could make a difference, which then led me into the Waugh Foundation in Australia, which is now 20 years old next year, and we look after kids suffering from rare diseases. So I often say that cricket in India gave me a lot of lifelong memories, but it gave me life-changing moments, and one of those was meeting Mother Teresa, getting involved in charity and realising that I could make a difference by doing it.
In your time in India, what's been the biggest change from first time you were there to now?
A massive change, 86 to now. I mean, even the airports, they're world-class airports now. When I first went there in 86, it'd take you hours to get the bag off the carousel if it turned up, and then to get out of the car park would take another hour. It was just chaos, and literally you couldn't get anywhere. So that's a big change. The hotels are all world-class standard now. If you don't want to experience the real India, you don't have to. I think the Commonwealth Games were there a few years ago, and I felt sorry for them a bit because they landed in Delhi in a new airport, got the new train to the new hotel and then to the new stadium, and they didn't actually see any of India. It could have been anywhere in the world. So I'm glad I toured there back in 86, and on this trip we went to a lot of up-country places, I guess, not the main cities, and explored there. So that's what I like about it. But I think I'm sort of used to the food and the things there, so I don't get sick anymore. But the first time I was there, it was took me 12 months to recover after the first trip, so a lot of changes. But no, I'm currently doing the Spirit of Cricket Australia book, and that'll take a few years, and then I'd like to do maybe one in England and perhaps one, in countries like Nepal or Bhutan. There's a lot of amazing cricket places there as well, so maybe a global one at some stage. That's if I don't run out of time, but Australia's the next big project.
Favourite innings and toughest opponent?
Probably the same, probably the West Indies when I was playing, because they were the benchmark. They hadn't been beaten for 15 years unbeaten. We hadn't beaten for 22 years, so they were always the team you wanted to beat. And then these amazing fast bowling attacks were endless quick bowlers. So yeah, on that topic, I mean, Malcolm Marshall was a great bowler. Then you went to people like Curtly Ambrose, incredible bowler. So yeah, they were highly respected. Someone like Wasim Akram, Alan Donald, Murali. It's hard to really pick one great bowler because there's so many, but one guy I respected probably as an opponent was Ambrose.
If you did Spirit of Cricket Caribbean, would you be able to get a shot like that of Sachin with Curtly? I mean, obviously a bit more tension between you.
Yeah, no, Curtly, I get on well with Curtly now. He wanted to kill me when I played against him, but now we're mates. I remember when he played, he said, man, I was going to kill you. So lucky Richard Richardson jumped in, but now we realise, we probably both got a bit carried away. And he's a good fellow. He's a funny guy, and I'd love to take a portrait of him.
But Steve, finally, I'm just wondering, is there something that you've taken this exhibition in front of people, and I mean, you've played cricket in front of hundreds of thousands of people, millions collectively, but what's that feeling of this gathering looking at your artwork and you can't control anything anymore?
Yeah, I think the one thing I'd say is anything's possible. I never thought I'd be standing here opening an exhibition of my photographs. So for all the young kids there especially, don't doubt yourself, and if you've got an idea or a dream or a vision, then go for it. I mean, I've written 14 books. I've self-published all the last couple. I've done this photography book. I've started a charity. All these things I never thought I'd do, but I think the key is if you've got an idea, go for it, and then you can work out later how to make it happen. And it was the same with this photography book. I thought, I want to do a photographic book. Let's do it. And Harley, my manager, gets dragged into these and thinks, oh, bloody hell, here we go again. But and then you work out how you can actually do it, and there is a way to do it. If you're committed and passionate, anything is possible. So don't let people say that you can't do something.
You can keep looking at the photos for a little time, but do come back again. The exhibition is free after today. So please, ladies and gentlemen, the person to thank, of course, is Steve Waugh.
Thank you. Cheers, mate. Good job.
Yeah.
Thanks.